Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dashcoin Research Podcast. I'm your host, Nicholas Wenzel, and today I have Lewis on with me. Lewis is the founder of Foundry, and it's like Cursor for internal tooling. Lewis, it's great to have you here.
Hey guys, hey Nicholas. Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Let's start by talking about what Foundry is. Could you give us a short overview, kind of at a high level, and we'll get into the details more later.
Okay, so let me just give you some context about how I came to it to begin with, so that you can sort of follow the story along. So I was looking at a lot of SaaS tools, right, and a lot of internal tooling that people used to build stuff with, right, and I realized that most of these tools are really just simple UI that involves a list view and a detail view, right? So, for example, you look at things like Salesforce, you just have a bunch of customers, and then you can click into it, and then you get a detail view, right? But people have to create custom software just to fit into their workflows, right? So I realized that since now LLMs are actually really good at generating code and generating custom UI, why not just make it happen such that you can simply just throw data at the system and have the system construct production ready internal tools for you. Sort of like Cursor, but like Nicholas said, for internal tooling. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially when people are spending so much money on things like Salesforce. I actually used to be a Salesforce admin, and so I'd customize the software for people, and yeah, the software itself is really expensive, and then having someone customize it is also expensive. And so it seems like you're trying to solve that problem, but for a bunch of different SaaS products that people might use internally. They can just build their own. Is that kind of the angle you're taking?
Yeah, something like that. Something like how vibe coding is a thing now, right? When you vibe code an application on Cursor or something like that, and then but instead of having you have to go through the whole process of actually knowing some level of development skills, you could just straight ship it to production, right? So you would have a prompt that you can type in and say, I want a CRM based on this specific customer list I have, and from this CRM, the details I specify, it will just build the UI for you, and it will just work without you having to know, hey, I'm gonna go change this line of code so it stops being buggy and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm kind of skeptical because in my experience, vibe coding, it's kind of a hit and a miss. Sometimes it does a really good job. Sometimes it's actually so god awful that you're like, man, I would rather just pay Salesforce. So I'm wondering, what did you do to make it better hit rate than if someone just used Cursor? Why would someone use Foundry instead of me just going to use Codex or Windsurf or something like that and just do it myself on one of those vibe coding platforms? Why would I come to Foundry and do it?
Okay, it's really down to how it was designed. So unlike how most other coding assistants, right, they are developed, they rely a lot on you building out the entire stack yourself. For example, the back end, the front end, all these things require you to be editing it yourself, right? For example, people use Superbase and all these tools, but for Foundry, I made it so simple that the only elements that are actually being edited are, one, the schema of the data that's being stored, and two will be the UI that's generated. So it's really just simple CRUD. So all the CRUD, if you're not familiar with CRUD, it's basically how it basically stands for create, read, update, delete, which is basically how most applications get stuff done, right? Whether you create something, update something, read something, or delete something. So all that is already preset and built already inside Foundry, and within Foundry, we only change things related to the UI and related to what kind of data you want to store. Does it make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. And that actually seems like a pretty elegant solution, because the problem, in my experience, it often comes on the back end. Coding has the issues whereas like the front end is usually pretty decent with vibe coding. And
Yeah,
so if you're
exactly.
simplifying it, where all it needs to do is really fix that front end and maybe the schema, like that's pretty simple for it to do. I like it. So tell me about your team and your background. Like what makes you guys good at building this kind of stuff?
I guess I'll start with myself. So for the last let's see, last 7 to 8 years, I've just been shitting out products, and all kinds of stuff. I've built like 2 startups, one which had moderate success that I can't really name right now, and one that was a complete flop. Yeah, so I've had a lot of experience, especially within the LLM space, right? Um, I was working on this startup that was doing something similar to what Bolt does. Are you familiar with Bolt?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so Bolt is basically this startup that does screen generation. It's something like Livable. Do you know Livable?
Not really. I've never used it. I vaguely know it's something like an AI coding tool.
Yeah,
Is
it's
that
something
right?
like AI coding tool. It's meant for front end. So I was working on a competitor to Bolt and Livable, which basically helps you generate screens, which is sort of like what Foundry does, but it's meant for people who are developers, right? And while building it out, I realized that it didn't make sense to just uh, build things with just aesthetics without the functionality. And I wanted to pivot during that phase of a startup, right? I realized that hey, the LMs weren't good at design back then. They were good at functionality and getting the base stuff right. So I had this sort of like a smidge of an idea while I was working on that previous startup to build something that's more functional and uh, can actually replace internal tooling. Yeah. So that was my background. That startup, it happened really long ago actually. It happened like back when ChatGPT first came out actually. Like we actually had a whole entire pipeline where we were fine tuning. Uh, Let me see if there's a way to explain. Are you familiar with all these terms? Try I simplify it for the layman?
No, I think you can keep it about this level.
Okay, so basically I was um I was using very old models back then. There were things like this model called DaVinci, and DaVinci and GPT 3.5 Turbo were like the earlier versions of fine-tunable models that you could actually use. So what we were doing, we were actually just trying to collect good quality screens and then like fine-tune them to be like more consistently good. But then I realized that didn't really work out very well back then because the technology wasn't good enough back then and we didn't have enough data. But nowadays you have things like Claude 4 and all these things that just dominate and do a really good job. Yeah, so I figured that since now that all these things are possible, I can just really just give it a go again and make it functional.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about the story of why you launched a token. How did this come to be?
Well, I don't know how this will good how this will do for the token, but I'll just be honest up front. So I was on the train back home, right? And I was thinking like, hey, maybe I need some users on my platform, right? And I was looking at platforms like Product Hunt. I was looking at platforms like small startups or something like that. I forgot what it's called. Then I looked at Believe, right? I was like, hey, technically, if these people are gonna invest in my platform, they're gonna have to use my platform to know whether it's good, right? Which means I will have guaranteed users. So I didn't really think much of it, right? And I decided to just post it, right? I just wrote the short description. I put my demo video on there. I didn't buy my own tokens at the start, right? Because I didn't think much of it. And next thing you know, when I was walking back, right, people just started blowing my DMs up, and people started replying to my message, my post on X, and it just it just blew up. Like, I was like, what's going on? And people started asking me to go, hey, get on Spaces, explain yourself. What is this product? What is this magical thing that you're working on? And I'm like, sure, why not, right? I might have opened like a Pandora's box of like something, I don't know. But let's see where this goes, right? And then next thing you know, I'm on Spaces, just I was panting as well. I was just like running back home ish because I had to buy my own token, right? I was on Spaces, like brisk walking back home, panting, and trying to explain my vision of the product. And as I explained my vision of the product, I just saw the token just constantly go up and up and up and up. I'm like, what the heck? Why is everyone buying this? What's going on? Right? And I was like panicking because I couldn't even get liquidity to actually purchase my own token. If I were to buy the token back then, I would have had like this really insane slippage. And next thing you know, it's like 1 million in market cap. And then I was like, what have I done? And I just found it really amusing. And it was an extreme high. I think there were a lot of KOLs that came in. And it was wild. Yeah.
That's actually a really common experience, is people kind of launching without thinking it through super hard. That's actually how I launched my token as well.
Oh, is it? Wow.
I had built a Dune dashboard, and someone was telling me to launch a token for it, and I was like, fuck it, like, why not? You know, so I sent a token for it, and it like instantly bonded. I didn't really pay attention to it. I didn't even like see it for the first little bit, and then I thought like, okay, what else can I do with the token? And so it's kind of like evolved over time, and it's been really fun, and it's been in like a driving force for me to build harder. Have you felt the same thing? Like, has it made you more excited to build your product because you have now a token attached to it, whereas previously you were kind of like, you're building, but it was more quiet and calm and I guess steady? But have you felt like there's more of a fire under your butt to get something done?
There's been definitely an adrenaline rush, right? So it's not so much about the token, right? Not about the fear of like the price or anything. It's more about how you kind of, with the token existing, people are invested in you because, well, they have money in you, right? And because they have money in you, you have an audience. And I found that really, really hard to get back when I was building my things, right? Because I'm not someone who's very public facing usually. I'm just building my things on my side. If you saw my previous works, I've been building like things like alternatives to MCPs and things like random stuff like project management tools. But I never really saw like people just want to eat it up as much, right? Whether or not it's because they are invested, whether or not it's because because they're invested, or whether they love the product, right? So I was mostly just like under this adrenaline to like deliver what I promised to my people who believe in me, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah, in fact, right, actually I was supposed to be on a vacation the week after I launched, right? But in the end, my vacation just became me posting stuff on X all the time, constantly trying to make sure things were going okay, right? Pushing out as many updates as I could, right? All these things. Because I was like, man, this is really exciting.
It is really exciting. How much fees have you generated so far? Do you know?
I think it's about 52K.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you have plans of what you're going to do with that money yet, or are you still kind of deciding?
So we've allocated some of it to just dev work. I don't think I can do the solo dev by myself anymore, because now I have timelines to actually deliver, and I want to like hire another dev to actually help me out with it. And obviously some of it will be spent on marketing, but I haven't allocated exact percentages yet. We want to make sure that everything is properly set up. And there's a lot of small things, right? Like, for example, you want to hire lawyers to actually vet whatever we plan out for things like utility, whether it's legal or not in my country, and all these things. Yeah, so many small factors that we have to throw in there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's smart. The legal aspect of all this stuff is pretty interesting. I think a lot of it operates in kind of a gray area, but it's good to get the exact specifics down because you got to cover your own butt. And I think using the project fees for that is really smart. How much do you think you would have, like, if you didn't do Believe, you might have raised this money like elsewhere, and you might have raised more, but you might have had a different like amount of pressure on you, and it might have taken a long time to get it. Like if you went VC route, how much do you think you would have raised instead?
I'll probably think like 100K for about 10 to 20%. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting split now that I think ultimately you've raised less than that, and you don't have the like control over your own token, like 100%. You don't have the control over the whole supply. Would you recommend that like another founder launches on Believe? Like if one of your friends came up to you and he was wanting to launch, what would you say to him?
I think it depends on the friend, right? So I actually had a friend who was like interested in launching one of their products onto Believe, right? But he kind of messed up his launch, and that's not because of like his competency as a developer, right? But it's because he doesn't know the space very well, and I think you should at least know some things about the Web3 space in order to be able to like talk about your token and represent your token. If not, people will just treat you not as well as like other like founders, I guess. So it's really up to the person whether it makes sense for them to launch.
Yeah. I want to talk about your token. I want to talk about the go-to-market that you have for your like product idea. And also I'd like to talk about your ideas for token integration. Like how do you see, what role do you see the token playing in your product and your ecosystem? So first, let's talk about your go-to-market strategy. I'd be very curious to hear how you think about getting users for your product.
Right now, we've been doing things in a very unscalable method. So we've really just been, well, before we even launched the coin, we were actually just going to people who were within a fixed niche that could actually utilize the product well. So we were looking very heavily into the insurance industry. So my other co-founder, right? So I have a guy who's very product focused, more product focused than I am, because I'm more engineering and creative, like building kind of a guy. So this guy, his name is Justin. I think those who are in my community will know him as the guy who's saving my ass during like spaces when I'm not sure what to say. So he's been talking to a lot of different insurance agents within my country to make sure that this product can at least fit the workflow really well before we move on to another niche and move on to another niche. Yeah. So we're looking at a very unscalable approach right now because we want to really get the product market fit to work.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense for like a startup your size. Like, do things that don't scale. It's classic advice, and that's smart to get some core users who really love your product and make sure it works really, really well for them. Because it's easier to get if you're focusing completely on one niche. It's easier to get that correct than it is to get like a broad product for everyone correct.
Especially
right?
since Foundry is like a very general tool. Yeah, but there's actually a lot more to Foundry that we want to build, right?
Yeah, tell me about it.
So, I think so far I've only mentioned the internal tooling part of things, where you can just basically build a CRM. Right? It's like cool in itself, but it's not really mind-blowing. People can just go to CRMs and pay for a CRM, right? But that's not the end goal, the end vision for us. So, we noticed that within those tools, right? Back to the same analogy of how everything's a list view and a detail view, right? We notice there's always the same action people take when they're using their tools, whether it's a SaaS, whether it's invoice management, whether it's CRM, lead qualification, right? It's this thing they do, right, where they would go row by row and perform an action on each of these rows. For example, right, you'd go to, let's say, your CRM, you would qualify your leads, right, by doing research on them, maybe going to LinkedIn, maybe doing a research using my Siri just went off, but you'd go to LinkedIn, you maybe research on them a bit, maybe Google stuff. So all these things are actions, right? And you would have to do it one by one for every single person inside your CRM. So what's on the roadmap next would actually be the ability to do this in parallel, automatically using agents. So it's sort of like an AI native internal tool that just connects and integrates with whatever you want it to. Yeah, so that's actually what most of the insurance agents that we talk to, they really, really want.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd definitely be really useful. Okay, yeah, I think I understand your go-to-market pretty well. Let's talk about your token. Where do you see it playing a role into your business? Have you thought about that much yet, or are you still kind of figuring that out? Because it's very early, like you said, like you just launched not that long ago, you know, and you got a big business. So I'm just curious where you're at with the thoughts about your token.
Okay, so for the last few weeks, we have been really discussing about it because the community has been pushing for, hey, we want utility. So we kind of did this thing where we pushed the utility for the main product aside for a bit, right? And just yesterday we launched a sub-product that was meant to be an integration into Foundry in the future as like a standalone product. So because we don't want to like sort of rely on the main product that's still in alpha for any utility that adds value to the token, we realized that we need something that provides immediate value to the community, to the Believe ecosystem, right? So just yesterday we launched this thing called Get Good. It's like GITGOOD, right? And it basically helps you figure out whether or not a launch on Believe, right? Whether the guy behind the launch has a good GitHub profile. So it essentially does what you so it essentially does what you do with like Perplexity or like OpenAI's deep research, but instead of doing deep research on like a wide set of data sources, it's just I'm gonna go read every single line of code this guy's written in the last few years, and I'm gonna tell you if this guy is correct or not. Yeah, so we launched that as a separate product, and this is where the utility comes in, right? We made it such that people within the people who hold 10 million Foundry tokens, they get to access the Telegram group where the bot would announce whenever there's a new launch that says, hey, this guy is actually correct, you can take a look at him. So that's one of the things we've done. Obviously that comes along with the Telegram group where there's like a top holders inside. And obviously we need to add more utility to it than just that, right? We're thinking about for the main product, we are just still discussing because we need to make sure things are actually done right. We're thinking of doing a marketplace where you have Foundry tokens that actually let you sell and buy templates of dashboards that you've created. Yeah, so that's in the future.
Nice. That sounds cool. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's really early. Like your holders are, you said they're pushing you guys for utility, and it's like that with every project I've talked to. Like the holders are rapidly asking for, do this, give utility. Where's the utility? Burn the token. They want all this stuff. But I think they're used to the pace of meme coins where everything happens really quickly, and it's all just like, there's nothing really to ship, so it all happens quick. But with this, like, I think it's like we got to remember they're startups. These are small teams of people that are doing this stuff, and they're in it for the long haul for the most part.
Yeah.
You want to find people who are in it for the long haul, and so it's good. You got a place to start, and I think there's a lot more coming. So maybe in a month or two, we'll do another episode, and we'll talk about what's changed, with your product and with your token integration. How has that been for you interacting with all the holders? Have you felt like, when I was talking to Bobby from Dupe, some of his holders are really smart and they gave him like awesome advice. They connected him with really good people in the crypto industry, and it's been like super helpful. And then of course there's like, the other 80% of people who are like just kind of aping your token and screaming things at you. Have you gotten like good advice from any of your people, or are they mostly like screaming at you for stupid stuff like burning your token?
Well, at first, I have to say when Foundry was hitting 1 million in market cap because of all the hype, I have to say there was a lot of people who were only interested in the token price. They just came in and just started screaming in my ears. It was really fun. My ears, luckily they were screaming over text, right? So my ears are fine. But yeah, so that was interesting and an interesting experience. But after that, like my coins started to tank because I think I didn't really do marketing well enough, and I fumbled here and there, and the coin started to fall a bit. I think we really weeded out all the people who are short-term traders from the token, and I think Foundry is already stabilized around a 200k market cap. So all these people that have been holding have really been useful to me. Like, they've been very helpful because they believe in the long-term vision. Whether or not it's just moral support, right? I have this guy who just only reposts Foundry's posts on X, right? And I feel like so honored that these people believe in the project so much. And there's obviously the other bunch of people who are very competent at what they do. So I have people who are in the CRM industry that have actually given me like some advice about things like how I need to do certain things for enterprises. For example, some data governance things they have to look at. So there's all kinds of people that you get when you just launch a coin. So it's interesting, I have to say. Yeah, but I'm mostly glad that all these people who are just trading Foundry are kind of gone now.
Yeah, for sure. It's important to have like the people who hold the token at the moment to be more long-term people. That big spike and crash is like what everyone should expect to happen when they launch a token, and I think like the Believe team could do a better job of explaining that and kind of setting the expectation that like that's what's going to happen. But anywho,
did you go through the same thing as well?
Sort of, except mine was so under the radar because it was like so kind of lame at the beginning. Like all it was a Dune dashboard, so like I wasn't claiming to be like this crazy product or anything like that. So it didn't have as much interest as some of the others, And then as I built it out more, like the days following, it already kind of like it ran up to like 400k market cap just being a Dune dashboard, and then it went down to like 80k in the next couple of days. Which I feel like is more reasonable for a Dune dashboard. But then I started like building a website on top of it and running this podcast, and then it was kind of a more gradual run up. And then like Ansem retweeted my post, and then it went to like 1 million in a day, and then
it's back down.
And now it's back down to that's a very short term problem. When Ansem retweets something, you got a bunch of people who just want to trade that retweet, and that happens.
I mean, hey, you can't complain about transaction fees, right?
yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's been a fun ride. Has there anything that you want to talk about, Lewis, that I haven't asked you yet?
Let me think. I'm sure there's something that I'm missing out because I am kind of tired.
Yeah, everyone thank Lewis because he got on with me super late his time, and because we're on opposite sides of the world. So thank you, Lewis, for coming on in the middle of the night.
I'm on like I think 3 cups of coffee. Let's see. Oh yeah, so I want to ask you as like someone who's created a project, a token yourself, right? How do you deal with like all these random ass guys coming to you, and you know they have an agenda, right? How do you sort of snuff them out easily? Because I've been getting approached by so many of these people in the last 2 weeks, and I just wish there was a way to just like silence all of them. Is there like a
Yeah.
is there like something that you can just filter them out with?
You mean people who ask you, who like hold your token and ask you questions about it, about like what you're gonna do with the
I mean,
part?
that's one thing, right? There was this guy who owned like 30K worth of Foundry, and he started demanding me to do things, right? And then later I saw like there's this a huge volume crash of my token, right? And it was 30K, so I was like, it's probably that guy. And then he came back into the community and he started saying things like, he started posing as a holder still and still asking me to do things. But then I was like, okay, that's kind of annoying, right? So I just banned him. But that's not the kind of people I was talking about. I was talking about those people who just try to like sell you their KOL service and like do marketing for you or like fake spaces or stuff like that.
Yeah, you just gotta. I always look at the mutual following. If the person is only followed by like five people that I follow, then I just kind of ignore it because like it's probably a scammer. I also like there's people who have like 50K followers and then like only one person I know is following them, and in their bio they have like KOL something. And they offer me like, oh, we can boost your coin. Like, are you pushing your coin? Do you want me to push your coin for you? I'm like, no. I just leave them in my. They're in my message requests on X, and I just leave them there.
I see.
My Telegram's pretty empty, so I'm safe there. But are they coming into your Telegram group? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, that's been happening ever since I started one, and then
I shut down my Telegram group because it was like when I started one that was open to everyone at the beginning. And then I realized that it was a shit show and I had no idea how to administrate it and I didn't want to hire someone to administrate it. So I just shut it down, basically. And then I created a holder-gated one. So now if you go on my website, you can click a button and then it will pop up like a screen where you have to connect your Phantom wallet to then get access. It will like check if you have enough of the token. You have to hold like 5 million Dashcoin, which is like 0.5% of the supply. It's like quite a bit.
That's a really good filter.
It doesn't just like, not everyone can get in there, but the people who can get in there are either like have a significant amount of capital that they can spend that much money, or like they really believe. So it's a good group that we have in there, and that's where like I'll post these podcast episodes early. You know, we have a really good conversation in there because I also get in like traders who are like KOLs on Twitter who like I know, and like people who are interesting, and we all just talk about different interesting projects in there. So it's like it's been a really good community that I've curated. Awesome. So I would say do something like that, like create a token gated thing.
Yeah, I did do that with the whales, right? Yeah. Oh, speaking of KOLs, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Speaking of KOLs, right? Initially, I wanted to say that I didn't know that you're not supposed to get KOLs, and I'm still not sure. Is that the right strategy to go about doing things? Because like I'm getting people who keep coming into my DMs still, right? Who keep asking me like, hey, I know this KOL, do you want me to link you up with them? But then it feels so like undeserved if they have like fake KOL promotions and stuff like that. So I'm like there's this nagging feeling in the back of my head, like, do I give them supply and then do I like so it's a lot of like confusion, right? That there's that feeling of like,
my thing is, I think people can sniff out if it's not a genuine KOL, because what you don't want to do is have someone who's just paid to post you and they don't actually like you. I think the secret sauce is you got to get the KOL himself excited about you so that he posts you organically and wants to buy your token, and then he wants to bull post his own bags, kind of thing. Like, I think that's the optimal setup, because yes, you do want KOLs. Like, attention is really important, but you don't want like mercenary KOLs who are just coming in and want supply, and then they're going to dump on you the second like they have a good amount of money in that and forget about you. Like, it's good to talk with people like me. Come on the podcast, get your message out there, talk with people in DMs, and get those people with like a high following or medium following even excited, and then they'll tell their friends, and that's the best way to get it. I think you shouldn't pay or like give supply. I would advise against that.
Yeah, that's what Kevin from Believe Capital told me as well. So yeah, I have to really thank them actually. They kind of just showed me like, hey, you see all these things you did that were completely unplanned during a launch. Yeah, you kind of just fumbled up everything there. Here's a guide that you can actually look at and just follow. Now that you've launched it, here's the post-launch stuff. Then I'm like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah, shout out Kevin and the team over at Believe Capital. I'm really happy with what they're doing. It's really great to see them like build the resources for the community because it's super important. We need more stuff. Like it needs to be even more in detail, honestly. Like we need some legal guidance too, of what people can and can't say, and I'm really excited to have an ex-lawyer come on the show.
Oh yeah, I saw your post.
In like a week or so. Yeah, it's gonna be really fun.
Yeah. Oh, I should ask my questions. Should I just DM you on that?
Yeah, you can DM me. You can ask him right here. What do you want to know?
I had some questions, but my mind's not working right now. Damn.
That's fine. You can DM me later. I think that's probably a good place to wrap up, Lewis. What do you think?
All right. Yeah, I think that's great.
Great. Well, until next time. Take care.
Thanks, Nicholas.